Alright, thought a little opportunity for some unorthodox content for me. I guess, maybe. I guess I've shown a little bit. So here's Stephanie's X3 Turbo. And we're putting in a heater. You can see that's the blower. It's an Inferno heater. So that's where it's going to mount. There's the tubes, and I installed these ducts, and here's the 4 outlets, and see the heater core in there. Pretty slick setup. Mounts out of the way. I guess there's other ones that mount in a way that interfere with the leg room on the passenger or something. I don't know, but anyway, it looks pretty good. And then, so this is for the heater duct on this side for the floor heater. You can spin this around. You can close it. Right, and then there's also the defrost up here. She's got a glass windshield, and it tends to fog up in foggy weather. And so we set up a heater and a defroster. And adjust that around. Put this switch here, low and high, off. Tricky thing is though, so they give you these hoses and stuff to splice into the coolant lines to run to heat the heater box, heater core. But the tricky thing is the way they show it to install. There's no windshield washer bottle, so that's the upgrade. That's one of the first upgrades we did. First we did the winch in the bumper, and then we did the windshield wiper with the glass windshield. Glass windshield's overkill for my opinion, but it's not my money. And so we should get the glass windshield and the wiper. You can see the wiper there. That was quite a project to install, and it kind of would have been nice if we did it all at once, but it would have been a huge job because it's really a pretty big job. And we just wanted to go riding. It was like a brand new machine, especially she wanted to just go riding. Like I go riding anyway. The funny thing is I go ride on my electric bike instead of my X3. But my X3 is pretty badass too. But anyway, it's in pieces anyway. I'm upgrading. I'm redoing all the bearings and the rear suspension and the wheel bearings. It's been a long project because I haven't been too motivated because I ride my electric fat bike. But anyway, so point is the way they showed these hoses. I positioned these this way. It's not how they show it. They show these T's here and over there, and going basically right through the bottle. But with the bottle there, super complicates it. And so I had to sort of figure out how to reroute them to go under the bottle. And I think I got the right spot there. I think that'll work there. And let's see if we can see what we can see from this side. So you can see how it's kind of a pain though, because this usually pops out super easy. This access panel, you just like pop it right out if you need to get in here. But now it's going to mount. I got to drill a hole. Mount to here, so it's a little bit, and then this all gets enclosed, so if we need to go in there, I get it wired. It's a little bit janky, but I had to extend the wires because the all the switch spots were taken over here, so I had to put the switch over there where I showed it, and then the wiring harness wasn't quite long enough, so I had to add this. I didn't have any black wire. I guess I'm not much of an electrical guy. I got a bunch of wire around, but I didn't happen to have black in the right size, so I extended the black with brown. I did have some red. A little janky, but that all gets covered up, and those are all exposed terminals anyway, so it's not even, it's not like it's a big deal. I got a safety zip tie. That's not going anywhere. What else? So yeah, here's the defrost for this side. So that'll be nice because it's funny. The first night we took it out, it was super foggy, and we didn't have the wiper on yet either. But the fog was on the inside anyway. We couldn't see anything for a lot of it. But it was funny, even at one point we got out to try to figure out where we were because it was so fogged up, and I know this place like the back of my hand, and I still couldn't tell where I was. That's how foggy it was. You just couldn't see anywhere. And so then the fog cleared though when we got out of there. But yeah, so not entirely standard install. The installation instructions aren't great. They're better than the Can-Am product installs. So this is a Inferno heaters. As small as these pictures are, the Can-Am instructions are horrible. Like for the winch and the bumper and what else did I install? The wiper, all that stuff. The instructions are absolutely almost useless. Horrible. Tiny pictures. the parts diagrams are tiny. You can't even. It'll show you a clip here and a metal clip here and a plastic clip there, and you can't even tell the difference between them. And only one of them's numbered, and you can't tell what goes where. Horrible. Like Can-Am makes awesome machines. Their instructions and their parts diagrams are horrible. And I'm saying that as a professional CAD designer, and I make exploded drawings not all the time, but I've made 1,000 of them over 25 years or so. And it's funny, I was showing her, I was comparing a parts diagram that I did earlier this year for a client, and mine's like, the whole parts diagram is like 1 page, and their stuff, it's like a thumbnail is the diagram. It's ridiculous, and so not intuitive. But anyway, what else? Yeah, so you can see this duct. This is the duct for the defrost. You can see defrost duct comes from here. Had to run it down through to here, and again, that'll go up to here. And this one, you can see that one on the other side. And then this panel, no, where's the panel? Somewhere there's the panel with this guy. What did I do with it? Oh, here it is. So this guy, this is the panel that goes here. So you put these in with a hole saw. So you put these vents in with a 2 1/8 inch diameter, I believe it was, hole saw. So you can aim that so you can warm your feet up. That'll be up under here, like so. And you're gonna see like your knees go up under here, and so that'll warm your feet up. It'll be pretty slick. I don't have a heater in mine. I just layer up. It's cold out. Most of my friends don't ride in the winter anyway, other than like a ride or two, like an annual freezing cold February ride or something, maybe a November ride, because camp closes. But anyway, so yeah, I have to run those. Basically, I have to mount that and run those ducts, connect the heater core lines. That was a trick. Holy cow, getting the heater core lines. Because the thing was like I say, this is not a factory bottle. It is a Can-Am product, so it is made to fit. But this pass-through and what I want to call the firewall, but it's not a firewall because there's not an engine up here, but I guess bulkhead. I'll call it a bulkhead. And there's like one hole with a rubber boot. You can see it. You see this rubber boot. There's like octopus, and you jam all these through. So I've had to add this hose, the cables for the winch, and get it all past these pretty stiff stainless steel braided lines and other cables that are already there. And I mean, that boot is just jammed full of stuff. It was so hard to get these hoses in there and through, and you can't see anything. You gotta take the shocks, you gotta disconnect the shocks, and it's quite the project, really. Wiring was pretty easy. Running the hose was a little tricky. Like I said, I had to customize the layout of the hoses because of the washer bottle. But I tell you, I've been in this position like 3 or 4 times already, just because with the way the accessories are and to get the cables through from the front here to the cab, you got to go through that hole. So in order to get through there, you got to disconnect the shocks, jack it up, disconnect the shocks, and now that the bottle's there, I had to pull the bottle back out, trying to jam those hoses under there with it's already, that whole passage, that orifice passage, whatever you want to call it, is already jammed full. It's funny, the instructions are they're like, flex the booth to do this and that. I'm like, flex the booth? And this is the Can-Am instructions. Booth. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about, booth? Then I realized boot. They're talking about the rubber boot. And I guess I should have figured it out quicker because it's just a 1-letter typo. But, when you're trying to read instructions, you don't know what they're talking about. It took me a bit to figure out they meant booth. And, of course, the picture was like a freaking thumbnail. So and they don't point to it. They just show a picture of that area, and it's all black. The instructions are horrible. Good job, Can-Am. Nice machine, shitty instructions. But I got to figure out where to put this bypass valve here. It says to put it under the fender well like this, but the plastics are going to be all in the way. So, and then the way that this is routed unorthodoxly, this is so you sort of turn the heat on and off, which seems like a pain to have it up under here. So I'm debating if I should put it up underneath the dashboard here. Somebody let me know in the comments if anybody's done this. What are the chances that my mostly 3D printing channel, somebody has done a heater on a Can-Am X3? But I'm thinking this way you can turn it on and off, because these are the two hoses, right? Am I zoomed out fair enough? These are the two hoses coming from, I'm splicing in with those T's, right? And so this is the one to the inlet side. It says to put the shut-off valve on the inlet side, so okay. And, oh, and a special coolant. They get the long life coolant. I had to buy a special coolant because we add more coolant because there's more line length in the heater box. Hopefully a gallon is enough. But so these lines go into the back of here. You can see those fittings there. There's rubber caps on them for or plastic caps, whatever they are, to protect, to keep the debris out before installation. So these got to go here. So I'm thinking that somebody, if anybody has thoughts, let me know in the comments. I'm thinking that, although is that going to get covered up? I don't think that gets covered up. I think this stays exposed. I go look around at my available plastics. I don't think this gets covered up. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. You know what? I could check on my machine. I'm gonna check on my machine, which is hold on. All right, so my machine. Got there. Yes, I have no shop. My shop is my driveway. Oh, review of the Tusk dry bag, giant duffel bag here. This thing is awesome. Found it in the bed, good stuff. And so here's my neglected machine. Obviously very used. 3/4 of an inch of dirt on everything because you can only clean those things so well. And I guess last time I drove it, I didn't clean it. Yeah, so mine, the interior is assembled or not. Okay. All right. So my access panels are. Why are my access panels off? I'm not even sure why. What am I doing? I'm doing the bulb. I'm doing all the suspension bearings. Bumper. Why are my access panels off? I'm not sure. What else was I doing? Look, I got a backup camera in mine. We actually bought her a monitor and 2 cameras, backup and forward, so that way they're so hard to see out the front of these. Oh, I got a launch button. So I can do backfires intentionally. This thing's all hopped up. It's got bigger fuel injectors. Get the Evo tuner kit with the. I can run race gas on it. I don't know. It does like 245 horse if I go ethanol, or I just run at 205 on pump gas, which is pretty damn quick. This one's older. It's a 218. I bought this with a bunch of extras. It's got the e-brake handle, which that's like not even a thing on. From the factory. That's aftermarket. The guy, that was like 11 grand in aftermarket parts on this thing when I bought it. That's why I bought this one. It already had a lot of stuff. I put a few more grand into it at least. But it had all kinds of stuff. Backup camera, tuner, e-brake, harnesses. Well, actually, I don't know if those are factory harnesses. Maybe. I'm not sure. Because this is the X. So I think the X has the factory harnesses and the bead locks. Because they also have bead locks, get the winch, no heater though, Bluetooth speaker. But anyway, the point of looking in here is yes, there is no cover under here. So I think I'm going to put that shut-off valve in the cab, which makes more sense anyway. Maybe I'll have to email them because I'm not going to cut it tonight anyway. I'm going to have to email Inferno Heaters and say, hey, why don't you have the valve in the cab under the dashboard? So that makes more sense because then you can turn it on and off when you're driving, whereas the other way you got to get out to turn it on and off. Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense to me. I got the full doors, I got the upgraded skid plate, I got the bash bars all bashed. But anyway, enough of that. Back to this one. So nice machine. She got the sound bar on the back. Pretty nice. Sounds good. What else we got going on? It's probably enough for this video. Yeah. It's getting there. And it's funny because she just wants to ride. And I can tell it's getting a little impatient. And Saturday was super nice. And I was going kayaking. And And she invited me hiking in the morning, and so we went hiking in the morning, and then I was like, all right, go ahead, kayaking. She's like, I thought you were working on a machine today. I was like, well, it's a big job. It's going to take time. But anyway, we're getting there. And yeah, and that was the day that Godzilla got attacked by something and totally changed my plans. Anyway, okay, the update on that. The doctor called me. I've had a few doctors call me a few times. They finally did the surgery today. And they said it was worse than they thought, which didn't surprise me because, you know, you get a multiple compound fracture like that just from the x-rays. To me, like, I know I've busted ribs and stuff, and it's not just the bones, it's the tissue around it too. And so I wasn't sure how that was going to go. And they said that the both ends of the femur were broken off, and the downstream end was broken off right near the end, and it was all splintered, and it was more of a challenge than he thought, and it scared the hell out of him. And he said, but then he went in, and it looked, he said, by some combination of miracle and surgical skill, not the most humble guy, but definitely competent, it seems like, or at least confident. Well, hopefully he's as competent as he is confident. He said he had to put this, they call it a nail, what do they call it? Biometrics, some kind of nail. Yeah, it's like a rod with pins that go across it and goes through, and you put the bones back together. And he said you had to use some like baling wire, like mechanics wire, to wrap around the splintered end and stuff. And so he says it's pretty rough, but should be good. So hopefully Godzilla, after a couple of months of rest in a cage, very immobilized, will be okay. But anyway, so I'm partway through this. I got it. Yeah, meanwhile, back at the ranch, I got it wired. I tested the wiring, make sure I had the wiring right. I hit the switches with the so it's on switch to power. It's not on full-time power. And the blower works, so that's good. And the ducts are run, and the hoses are mostly run. And so I got to drill some holes to mount that heater box. And like I said, the one of the tricky parts of those ducts, I'm sorry, the vents, the diffusers, whatever you want to call it, they're like drill a 2 1/8 inch hole with a hole saw and then pop them in. Man, you got to shove those things in there. I mean, it was hard, a lot harder than I thought it was going to be to get those things in there, get the hoses connected, the ducts connected, and everything. And we got the ducts cut to length, I got the hose cut to length. Like I say, I just got to cut the hose at the point where I want to install that bypass shutoff valve, and then finish the plumbing. Then I got to drain the coolant, because I need to cut into these lines. Like I didn't cut into I got to cut into this line here to put this T in. That's the inlet side, Google says. And they said to put it on the inlet side, so I Googled which is the inlet side, and plenty of people probably know better than me off the top of the head which side is the inlet side. It's the higher side. And it makes sense after when I think about it. Then this side, I got to cut this hose. I already marked these. You can see I marked that with a Sharpie, and I marked the other one with a Sharpie where I want to cut those. So I got to drain the coolant, cut those hoses. I have a real hose cutter, so it doesn't come out all janky. Real hose cutter cuts a nice clean cut. So I will do that. Of course, it's going to be, it'll be all right. It's pretty good access there. See, the tricky thing was, the other thing was too, is I started to lay these out, and then I was like over here, and I was like, wait a minute, where are the shocks going? So then if I put the shock in place, so put the shock in place, now I'm like, shock hitting this. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I checked that. So that's one of the reasons I had to reposition it. Ow. Didn't bit me. Yeah, didn't bit me. I'm not bleeding. I can't believe it. Usually I'm bleeding. I usually bleed all over the place. But anyway, so instead of like this, it's gonna be up like this, and I'll zip tie it. Yeah, I don't know if that was on camera. So instead of like this, where I originally had it, it's gonna be like this. And I'll zip tie this up so it'll be out of the way of the shock. It'll go kind of under the bottle. Same on the other side. Funny thing is, I got the winch cable out. I went to start it. I started to put it on my trailer, take it from her place to my place today, and it didn't start. I hit the button and it didn't start. I was like, what the hell? And so I just hooked up the winch and I winched it onto my trailer. And then once it was on the trailer, I tried again and it started right up. I was like, all right. isn't that a kick in the teeth? But whatever, it was on the trailer. And now it started up when I backed it off. So yeah, I marked this hose here where to cut it also, and move this up out of the way. So that'll go under the bottle. The hoses run into the cab. Connect those, connect the shutoff. I mean, technically I could run it without the shutoff valve, but that'd be dumb. Might as well do it once I have it all. Actually, I didn't even need to drain it to cut that in because that's not full coolant yet. But these are fun machines to work on, kind of, but not really. On mine, I had to take the whole differential out, replace the housing. So I had an axle. And for the record, it was a Rhino 2.0 axle. I really don't trust Super ATV. They seem to cut corners on quality. And I don't know if it's their fault or what, but I had an axle brake. How does that work? It was on the other side. I had a Rhino 2.0 axle brake, like right at the. Yeah, okay, it must have been on the. Yeah, I didn't think through that much, but it broke like right at the on the other side of the CV joint, and it ended up damaging the differential housing just slightly where the seal presses in there. Just enough so I couldn't get a new seal in there. And therefore, I had to replace the whole differential housing, which not only did I have to remove the differential out of there, which you can imagine, you have to take everything apart. Suspension arms off, everything. Then I had to rebuild the differential because I had a new housing and I had to reuse all the old differential parts. And that was an adventure, boy. I tell you what, I didn't have the, so I had to, you get the pinion nut out, and it's not a hex nut, it's like a reverse nut where it's like a spline on the inside. You need a totally special tool. I ordered a special tool. It's super hard to find. I finally thought I found it. I ordered it. It wasn't big enough. It was from a quad, Can-Am quad, and so that didn't work. I ended up making a tool out of a jack post pipe to tube from a jack post. Did a measured, they say measure twice and cut once. I measured about 13 times and cut about a dozen times to get this like 8-pronged specialty internal spline nut removal tool. And it's funny, before I tried using it, I texted a picture of it to my buddy and I told him the story, and I was like, that's what I made. And he's like, that's never gonna work. It worked. So I rebuilt the whole differential. Put a locker in it. Oh, even better. So I put a locker in it, locker kit, Halo locker. And they assured me that because I have aftermarket, they said as long as you have an aftermarket control arms, it'll clear the actuator. So I put the whole thing together. Put the Halo, got the Halo housing, which is nice, really nice, expensive but really nice, and the Halo locker, and I put it all back together. And the aftermarket control arm doesn't clear it. It doesn't clear the actuator. And he says, I was pretty sure it'd clear the actuator. Theirs do it. And so I looked at theirs, meaning Super ATV, and their actuator is lower profile on the housing. Because it's funny, because the Halo is actually better designed. They use a wave spring as a spring instead of like 4 or 5 springs in a radial pattern on the Super ATV. But the Super ATV ends up lower profile, and that alone made it so the A-arm didn't clear the actuator. So what does that mean? I had to take the whole thing back out again, take the differential apart again, remove the locker, put it all back together again, reinstall it. And so I have a $1,000 locker in a box if anybody's looking for a Halo front diff lock. That's the side-by-side life, I'll tell you what. So I guess that's enough stories for tonight. I should be working on this thing. I figured I'd take a 2-minute video, and now it's been 25 minutes. And it's probably like 11:30. I might do a little more work. Maybe, I think the little more work is going to be put my tools away, which isn't too bad. It's not as bad when I work on it here because I can just have my tools on a service cart and I can just wheel them back into my garage. Whereas at her place, I got to put them all back in my truck, which is a hassle because I don't bring my service cart in my truck. But anyway, thanks for watching. I don't know if you guys found this interesting, maybe some of you. But side-by-side life, good fun. A lot of work though. A lot of money, a lot of work. A lot of money, a lot of work. Anyway, like, subscribe, share with your like-minded friends, and stay tuned. And hopefully I come up with something more interesting.